think that now is a good time to start. We'll let everyone else trickle in as we go along. And if I need to backtrack on anything, then I will. I have my chat open on another surface. So if anyone has any questions as we keep moving along, I can see it there. If I forget to answer anything, then I'll get back to it as soon as I can. Welcome to our Beyond the Nest. I am Carolyn. I'm a PT here at our West Loop location. I work with your little ones all on their strength and their stability and their mobility and sort of how to navigate their environment in the most efficient way possible. So I felt like a piece of information that I think a lot of parents may not know enough about or just want more knowledge on, and same goes for caregivers and our other therapists, was just the idea of posture, what posture is, what it looks like, what are the muscles activated when we use sit upright and sit tall. And so this presentation is just a small little mini dive into ideas and solutions for promoting improved posture at home. So we'll get into it right off the bat. First off, I think just a basic question is, what is posture? I went with the basic definition of just in the dictionary, what do they define posture as? And in the dictionary, it is defined as the position in which someone holds their body when standing or sitting. So it makes sense that it's just where you are in space at that point in time. The idea of then what do we do with that posture definition? So there's other words that we need to incorporate into posture. So postural orientation is more of the control of the relative positions of the body parts by skeletal muscles with respect to each other and gravity. So it's like, how do your body parts and your bones and your muscles and everything, how does that work together with gravity when you're sitting and when you're standing? Now, a sneaky piece that I don't think is always included in what people think about posture is just the idea of balance. As a PT, I work a lot on balance with all of our little ones, and balance is all of the forces acting on the body that are balanced, which means the center of mass is within the base of support. So when you think about balance, when they describe the center of mass, that's like the middle of your body and where all of the mass in your body is within your standing frame. So if you think about reaching outside of your base of support when you are sitting, that's sort of that point in position when you may fall over because your body is just not able to support yourself at that point in time because you're reaching too far. So we're incorporating all of these different aspects into one, and that's sort of what is going to define posture as a whole. I think this picture, I'm going to move all of our faces here. This picture is a good descriptor of just what ideal seated posture looks like. We're going to dive into that further in the next few slides as well. But I think it gives a good example of sort of just that neutral position that you are looking at and some of those muscles that are activated. I'm going to go into those muscles as we keep moving forward. Okay. So postural muscle activation. Muscles can be very confusing, and there are a lot of different muscles that get activated when we do any activity. And I think that some of these muscles you don't necessarily think of for something so simple. You think when you are sitting, you are relaxed, and that is a time to breathe and sit. But in reality, if you're sitting up tall and controlled, there are a lot of different pieces working together and overlapping that need to all come together as one. So I'm going to go through sort of this sitting and standing postural activation. So your core and your proximal muscles all have to work together. So that means that your shoulder girdle, so all of these muscles within your shoulder, all of your abdominal muscles, there's multiple layers of abdominal muscles. And in addition to your back extensor, so all of the muscles in the back here, everything has to work as one and sort of at the same time to hold you upright and make sure that you're not falling over. I think that makes sense. Having the idea of abdominal stability, we sort of understand that. I think what can sometimes be missed, and what I didn't always realize before I went to PT school, are these littler muscles that you still need and are very important. So we have all of these deep layers in our neck and in the back of our neck, and that's what holds our actual head upright. So if you think about it, when your posture starts to dip a little bit, those muscles are not working in the most efficient way that they can. And that's when you sort of start to see this forward head and the body just starts to fade and fade and fade. So we have all of the abdominal muscles, we have all of the neck muscles, we have all of those back muscles that are working together to extend the body and to keep it neutral. Okay, let's see if I described everything in our picture. So yes, you have your thoracic extensors, you have your neck muscles, and those abdominal muscles working. Okay, let's get on to sort of just why is seated and standing posture important. We're going to focus primarily on seated posture. My goal for this presentation is to describe posture and stability, but also to just give some time to demonstrate some of these different seating positions. Behind me, I have a variety of different chairs, both pediatric chairs for little ones, and then I'm also sitting in a big kid chair or an adult chair to show sort of different modifications that we can use. In general, why is seated posture important and why do we need to have those stabilizers working? Or if they're not working as efficiently as possible, why do we need the support around us to make sure that our body is comfortable? Primarily, it helps you complete all of the different activities that you need to do at a tabletop. So that can include writing, that can include coloring, that can include playing with different tactile materials and beads and rice, and really any type of crafts or activities that you are doing at a table. Those all require those postural muscles to be working. So even though you're thinking in your brain that it's just those hands working for all of those different activities, in reality, it's everything cohesively working together as one. Also, if you think about it, if all of your abdominal muscles and all of those postural stabilizers are working as one, that really is going to improve the attention and engagement of our little ones and even adults. I like to say, think about your own posture or where you're standing or sitting in space right at this very moment. I'm going to show you my little work setup that I created here and just how silly it looks. I currently have my computer set up on a step stool. I'm in an adult chair. My feet are at a 90-degree angle, but I had to set all of this up because the nature of the room and what I was working with, it's not allowing for that upright postural control. But because everything is set up in this way, it improves my attention and my engagement so that I can focus on this presentation and what we are doing instead of feeling uncomfortable in my chair and myself wanting to dip and sort of drift. Also, I think a big piece that we all do, everyone eats. Eating is important, but eating can also be really challenging for a lot of our little ones, especially if they have a hard time just maintaining their stability in a chair. So I think that if we support the body and support everything around us, then that eating control can really start to improve. If you think about the way that food goes down the throat and goes down this whole area, if your neck is in that forward position like we talked about before, or if you're slouched forward, or even if your neck is really tilted back like this, then the idea of swallowing that food gets to be really, really tricky. So trying to figure out ways to support the eating and the drinking of fluids is really important in this postural control question and how to assist it. Okay. So ideal seated posture. Really simple way to memorize it for both children and adults. Think of posture in a 90-90-90 scenario. So that means if you look at our friend here, we have a 90-degree angle in the hips, in the knees, and in the ankles. That 90-90-90 is really what's gonna just set everything up for success. Posture, maintaining that 90-90-90 for long periods of time is just not very realistic because I think it can be really challenging to hold on to those positions. So that's sort of what we're going to talk about is when that 90-90-90 is not achievable or not maintainable for a long duration. And then what do we do with that? So yes, the general theme of our 90-90-90 is those feet on the ground, your arms neutral, and your back is supported. And those are going to be the really key basics for maintaining that upright posture. Okay. I have a few little ones here to sort of show you just some various posture compensations. So our little one on the left here, he brings his feet up into the chair. He's sort of forward in a position. I like to say that this one, a lot of our friends try to bring all of their body parts as close together as possible because that just makes them feel a little bit more secure and a little bit more steady. They're really trying to widen that base of support. So if you have a wide base of support and my legs are crisscrossed, and that means that if I reach to the side or if I move around, I'm not going to tip over as easily. But also, if you have that big, wide base of support, you may not be working those abdominal muscles and you may not be working those postural stabilizer muscles quite as efficiently. It's not a bad thing to be in some of these different alternative positions, but if you notice a consistent pattern of it is really difficult to maintain that 90-90-90, then we may need to look at why are we assuming all of these alternatives and what can we do to help with that. The next picture in the middle. So our friend here, his posture, if you look at it directly, it seems to look like, okay, we have that 90-degree angle at the hips. We have it at the knees. We may be lacking a footstool at the feet. But I think a sneaky part with that middle picture is our friend's shoulders are very elevated. So you think about, he's putting all of that support through his elbows here. So it's really not making him work those abdominal muscles at all. And you think about the energy that it takes to be holding your arms into that table for that long amount of time. And what that means if you are trying to eat or you're trying to do an activity, you won't have that mobility in your arms to be able to navigate and freely move around. So that's where that one, even though it looks like this is pretty good posture, in reality, it can be still very challenging to move around. Okay, so our little friend on the right, this is one of those postures where I'm actually fairly okay with it and happy with it. For a snack time, I would let this little guy sit in this position, but there are some things that I think you could do to sort of improve the seating position. We see here, those feet are really dipping behind him. A lot of our little ones are doing this. I also do it with my own posture. I'm still sitting in that crisscross. I think as adults, it's hard to sometimes remember these postural modifications ourselves, but I'll show you some ideas for sort of how to improve in this specific chair on that right, that red one with the little handles. I have some ideas for what you can do to sort of bring those legs out from underneath and sort of make that body just look a little more supported. Okay. The never-ending question of W sitting. This is not a W sitting presentation. This is sort of a global posture presentation. I just wanted to put one slide in where I can verbally talk about W sitting and sort of just the idea of why we want to try to get out of that position. So if you think about a W sit, and if your little one W sits in general, or if you know of other little ones that maintain this position, it's those legs out to the side behind them. Now, if you look at the whole position here, before I was talking about that base of support where it's the stability point around your trunk and your extremities. So if you're sitting with your legs out to the side like that and you're in this W, you have so much space covering the ground because your feet are all on the ground and you feel free because you're not going to tip over. But what does that mean when it comes to strengthening your core and strengthening those muscles around you? The tricky part is if your body doesn't need to stabilize because it's so supported with those legs positioned so far outside from you, your abdominal muscles are not going to need to work. So if you think about if you're in that W sit position, if you move to the side, you're not going to tip over, you're not going to move anywhere, but that means that none of those muscles are activating. And we want those muscles activating for our little ones because if your muscles are activating, that means you can move fluid and easily through your crisscross applesauce sitting into a kneeling position, into standing, back to the floor, back to kneeling, back to crisscross applesauce. This W is really, really tricky to get out of. That's when you see a lot of the therapists really helping the little ones off of the floor and into their next positions, because sitting in that position, it's hard to move from. And that's why we see our little ones just sort of plop down into the W and hold it for a long amount of time. The actual alignment of the joints and everything, it's not ideal to be in that completely internally rotated position for that amount of time. I like to say if your child is transitioning through the W and they just happen to land in that position for a little bit, that's okay. They can transition through it, but it's used as a transitional position versus a static, silent position where they are just staying there for a long amount of time. So, main point takeaway from the W sitting situation is if your child is W sitting, give gentle cues to come out of that position. A gentle cue is to just tactily change their leg position and just show them, we're going to sit crisscross applesauce. A lot of our friends may not like crisscross applesauce. A good modifier, if you are just not at the point of getting to that crisscross applesauce, you can sit in a side sit position, and that's where both of your legs are to the side, sort of like a mermaid. Or you can sit with your knees underneath your legs and just scoot those feet underneath the bottom, and then you're a little bit more supported and you can easily get up through that kneeling position. If you have more questions about W sitting, we can answer those in the chat as well. I just want to do a little bit of a description, and then we'll move on to some of our actual seating options and what those look like. Okay. So let's start on some tips and tricks for upright posture and eating. This is our little friend here. We have been working very heavily on how to support the body and what that looks like. And this friend tends to want to be the one that slouches in his chair and has a harder time focusing because that body is just not very supported. So some ideas for initially setting up the environment. Basic things. If you elevate the food or the table, if you think about some of our little kid chairs and our little tables, but some of these little ones are growing up and getting bigger than them, look at the table, see if it's adjustable. Look at those chairs, see if there's a different one that's a different height, and see what matches where your child can get into that 90-90-90 position. It's not always an easy task, and that's where these modifications come into play. The next one, so if you're finding that this chair does not fit exactly perfectly, the table does not fit exactly perfectly, then what can we do with the actual seat? So that's when you're going to try to find sufficient back, foot, and arm side support. So if we actually look at our friend here, we did a lot of different modifications to try to help with that support. So underneath his bottom is an extra pillow to lift him up slightly to get those knees at that 90-degree angle. Perfection is not the answer. If they're a little bit above or below, just look at it and see how close to that 90 degrees you can get. Also for this friend, we have a variety of towel rolls and a little bit of a blanket on the side. It's really wedging him in on the edge there. You see here, this chair is a little bit more supported. It has handles on the sides, it has armrests, it has a back. Not all chairs are going to have those supports. If your chair does not have the side supports, I like to say the walls are your friends. So if you can position against a wall or find another surface that they can go against and provide some of that additional stability, then that can help with some of those situations. Let's see what we got. Okay, we have someone leaving. Okay, next tip and trick. So main thing, I am not looking to make any little ones angry. I'm not looking to make adults angry. If they're uncomfortable in their position, they can leave it. But the real question is, what position do we then get them into if they are not comfortable? I think a little bit of slouching is totally fine. It happens, but then sort of bring them back up into that upright position. If the slouching and the forward posture continues, then maybe it's time to find sort of an alternative seating position. So that may mean a more supportive chair. It may mean that they want something different than a chair to sit on. So that may be when you bring in a therapy ball, or you can bring in a softer cushion and they can take a break from regular sitting. They can even stand at the table. They can kneel by the table. There are a lot of options that don't have to be sitting. So if sitting gets exhausting and sitting is really just challenging for especially our fast movers that really want to be up and moving and doing other things, they can still be at the table participating in other ways. Finally, I think this idea of seated endurance is a big piece, because you can look at a little one and say, okay, I want them to sit upright and we supported this chair, but they're still having a really hard time. And it seems like they're only doing this for 1 minute at a time or 30 seconds at a time. It's okay. It's okay to only be at 1 minute at a time. But the idea is we want to be able to increase that time slowly. So if for day one, when you're actually starting to try this posture project with your little one, see how long they can maintain it. So if you put them in the most supportive chair where they can still get some muscle activation, how long can they stay in that position? Then the next day, you can see if they can hold it a little bit longer. I think having a really fun activity at the table, something that is very motivating for the child and is going to keep them engaged, is the best indicator of their actual posture. Because if they're happy and engaged and wanting to do what is in front of them, then they're going to be more likely to want to sit there and to stay there for a longer amount of time. Okay. So some additional posture modifications. I'll show you these wedges in a little bit, but we have our friend here and he likes to, once again, maintain that, what we call, so this middle picture, that's called a lumbar and thoracic. So this is a posterior pelvic tilt. So that means the pelvis is tilted forward and that's what's causing that curve in the spine there. We also have this thoracic kyphosis. So that middle part of the back is starting to round, and this is causing that whole head to move forward in the forward direction. So how can we assist this and make it a little bit more supported, but also allow them to work those muscles a little bit more? If you provide a wedge underneath their bottom, you can see how instantly that increases that curve in that back. So it improves those normal natural curves so that they can be sitting upright. I think the 90-degree angle is not essential if it's turning into that slouched position. I would much rather have this upright posture and those knees a little bit curved on that wedge than maintaining this C shape. So another position for our wedge is this little guy right here. So it's the same wedge. It's not the same position as having the wedge underneath the bottom, but it's a way to just get that body forward. So they're closer to the table, they're closer to the activity, and that posture is able to maintain an upright, able to maintain an upright posture a little bit easier. Okay, so that is a wedge. Now, we have a bunch of different seating options, all different kinds of chairs out there. We have regular basic child chairs, we have adult chairs, we have cube chairs. I like to say there are just a bunch of different adult chairs in this world. They have armrests, they don't, they have wheels, they don't. Little kid chairs have the armrests as well. There's so many different things that I think sometimes it's hard to look at them and say, well, this chair is not supportive, so how am I supposed to make it supportive? You can modify anything if you have the available tools. So what are those tools? Some tool options. We have books, boxes, pillows, towels. These are TheraBands. So those are the exercise workout bands that you may see online or at fitness stores or just really any stores these days. They're the stretchy bands. They don't have to be specific TheraBand brand. They just need to be stretchy bands that you can stretch around a chair. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing the presentation for 1 second because I just want to show you the different seating options, and we're going to just play with one chair to start out, and then I'll finish the presentation and then we'll leave it open for questions at the end. But let's do one modification to sort of show you what things look like. So if I stop sharing here, I'm going to show you first my setup for my adult body in this very small world of little chairs and little tables. So if we look, I'm going to put this here. Let's see. Okay. I put a little stool right on our table. So very, very silly looking, but really efficient for just lifting up my computer so that my own upright body can be at that 90-degree angle. Now, I'm in the adult chair. I'm going to actually turn our camera around so that we can make this a little bit easier. Let's see. Okay, so we have a variety of different chairs. I'm probably going to show you in the adult chair just because that is my size, but we have our traditional cube chair. We have a little rocking chair. We have another cube chair. This one has the available wedge. We have a wedge with a red chair, and we have our step stool. I'm going to show you with just our regular chair. So if we look at our regular chair, I'm going to put it over here. I'll put the computer on the step stool so we can see everything. The actual table. Okay. We have our regular chair. So if I'm going to sit in this chair over here, let's look at my body. We're not going to have a full angle here. So I'm just going to show you from this position, but pretty much my legs and my torso are at that 90-degree angle. So that does not really need to change a whole lot, but I'm going to show you what the wedge does. If I put a wedge here, it's going to lift me up so that my back is now a little bit straighter and upright. We have different types of wedges. We have these ones that are a little bit squishier, and that provides a little bit more support, but also gives a little bit more movement for them to play and sway and be able to move without being so static in that upright position. Now, if we are in a very tall chair for our little ones, I like the bathroom step stools. I think that they are really beneficial because they have these two levels. So you can get their feet up onto this one, or you can bring it up to the higher one, whichever one is necessary for that upright 90-degree angle. As you can see, my knees are really high above there. Now, if I were in a chair with armrests or positioned against a wall, that's when you're going to incorporate some towels. So we have towels here. Now these towels, you may need big ones, you may need little ones, you can use a whole blanket. The idea is you're going to wedge them in between the sides. So if we have a wall right here, and then we have the towel right here, we're trying to support that body so that when they are fully back against the chair, those towels are wedged up next to them so that they're not going to move out of that position. That may decrease some of the muscle activation, but ultimately, I think if it's improving those tabletop activities, it's okay to decrease that activation and work on the posture at additional times. Okay, we also have bigger blankets and bigger pillows. I think this is more of a foam roll. I think every workout store and every store in general has the foam rolls now. Those are good for being placed behind the back, and that can help increase some of that natural curve of the spine. If you see on the bottom of our one chair over here, I'm going to move our big chair. So this is a little one. It's a little bit too small for me, but we have this band right here. This one's a good chair. So if you have a little chair with the armrest, I like them because then you can provide those towel supports on either edge, and you can put a foam roll or a few wedge towels behind to give that upright posture. This one is going to provide that support to keep the 90-degree knee angle and that 90-degree ankle angle. The children can either push their feet against this, and that provides some tactile input to keep them moving, or they can push their legs against it this direction, and that sort of provides just a block, but a more fun block to keep them engaged, but also not to feel like they're really blocking the movement entirely. That's just one little example of what things look like. Let's see what our chat looks like. Okay. So let's move on. I'm going to set up my situation here again and turn the camera around. Okay. And we're back. So I'm going to share our screen again. those are our modifications. Now, different items. So if you have a stack of books, that's going to be used the same way as a step stool. If you have pillows, that's going to be your towel wedges. If you have a pool noodle, that's like a foam roll. So all of these little things can be working together to really provide that support. Okay. Now, important piece that we don't always talk about, but is very important, and I think people are talking about it a little bit more, especially with the introduction of the squatty potty into the world. Toileting and posture. Why is it important to maintain that upright posture when you're on the potty? It really is important because those pelvic floor muscles are still muscles that need to work in the appropriate way. So if you are not relaxed on the potty, those pelvic floor muscles are going to be so tight that they're not going to be able to release to let that urine or let that pass out. So relaxing those pelvic floor muscles. How do we do that? You want to make that potty time comfortable. You want to make it more efficient. So that means keeping the feet planted on the floor. The main thing for this one, as opposed to that 90 degree angle, you're wanting those knees higher than the hips in this position. So if those knees are higher than the hips, then ideally that means that those pelvic floor muscles can start to relax and let everything out. Knees higher than the hips, lean forward with your back straight, and then yes, use that footstool or that squatty potty, whatever you have at home. I think a lot of our little ones have those feet dangling, and that's just not a very comfortable position to be able to go number two. So if they are trying to go poop and it is just not happening, then you can try these little tips and tricks and just let them take their time too. It's supposed to be a natural process. We're not supposed to be forcing anything out. So if you promote that optimal posture, then that's going to allow them to relieve themselves comfortably. Okay, I'm a PT. I want to tell you sort of what I can do for improving posture. I think that as movement experts in this world, we're really there to help improve that postural strength. We're working on the co-activation of all of those muscles together. We're working on that endurance piece, so making sure that those muscles are able to activate, but once they are able to activate, how well can they stay turned on? And then the final piece, we're actually working to improve the range of motion. So that means the mobility of those joints. It's not just about strength. I know I was talking about the abdominal muscle activation and all of the other muscles that are working. But if you think of a joint that is really tight, if, for example, you have very, very tight hamstrings or those muscles behind your legs, that's really causing your pelvis to tilt backwards, and you're going to automatically be in that slouched position. So we need to lengthen those hamstrings so that you can maintain that upright position without being uncomfortable and without needing extra adjustments. So we're working on that range of motion. We can also identify these seating difficulties. So if you're welcome to email me after this presentation, if you have any ideas or if you have any questions about a specific chair at your home or a specific area that we need to work on to improve that posture. I think I don't always emphasize the postural piece all the time because I think it's a work in progress for all families. I'll show you initial modifications, but it's really going to be a family commitment to maintain those postures and try to trial them for a few minutes at a time each night and keep that consistency going. It's a big thing for the family and the caregivers and everyone around to be the role models for this good posture. So we need to be a role model that shows the upright position in order for our little ones to be able to maintain it themselves. I'm there to create those seating adjustments. So I'm going to show them the correct way to sit and then provide those adjustments as well, and then communicate all of that information to the rest of the therapeutic team and to the family. And then the biggest thing, I'm there to keep things fun with all of the physical therapy. So I may be providing strengthening exercises. We may be doing range of motion and stretching, but ultimately it's all through fun and games. And even when it's a specific exercise and it may not be as motivating and exciting, we're still going to do it in a way that your child is able to understand and develop and grow from. Okay. That is the end of the posture presentation. Like I said, it's just a little bit of a dive into what posture looks like, and primarily in that sitting position. There could be a million different presentations on standing posture and postural reactions and different types of floor sitting positions and what to do. I just wanted this as a basic toolbox for everyone to have of ideas that they can incorporate for that sitting posture, and sort of to just understand the muscles that are working and why it's important to be upright. So I'm going to leave it open for questions. I'll sit here and look at the chat for a little bit, probably the next couple of minutes, and then I will let you all go and enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Okay, do we have any questions? Let me open the chat. I'll stop sharing too. Let's see. Okay, and if we don't have any questions, then we'll just head out. Okay, because we're at the end of this here, I am open to any and all questions through email at any time. You can contact me at the Bluebird email address. It's carolynstoser@bbdprogram.com. It was a joy to be the presenter for this presentation and be able to educate you all on what posture looks like at home and what modifications you can do and all of the changes you can make. I hope you had a wonderful time. Okay, I am going to say see you later, and it was wonderful to present. Thank you all.